People bash college, people bash jobs, but all those experiences have played big roles in who I am today.
I have a very dear friend, Chris Senegal, who really has been on all aspects of the real estate spectrum. Although this show is about entrepreneurship, his entrepreneurial journey really is that process, and we wanted to highlight each phase of that process, from wholesaling, single family development, to buying and holding, and then large scale commercial real estate. Chris has really done it all, and it's been phenomenal. And the best thing about Chris, he's more about mission than he is profit, but he's getting both. So stay tuned to see best practices and ways that you can care about your community, develop your blocks, and make profit. Thanks for joining, and if you stay to the end, we might have a treat for you.
You know I came from the struggle, but I was made for the hustle. Out in the concrete jungle, I made my way out the tunnel. This for the entrepreneurs, this who I'm marketing for. We see the obstacles, yeah, we acknowledge them all. When people was doubting it all, we conquered it all. Listen to stories from people I met, dealing with real estate, dealing with tech. 24/7, they get to the check, breaking the barriers people have set. One man clubhouse roll, look what the concrete grows. Rose that the sunlight views, soon in the here B-rolls. Look at the roads that grew.
I want to tap into just, your mindset, your philosophy, go into some of the numbers of the deal. But first off, for the people that may not know who you are, can you tell the people who you are?
Yeah, so I'm a real estate investor developer based in Houston, Texas. I went to college, got that good corporate job as an engineer, and just realized, I felt like I was sold a dream. Started reading books, first generation wealth creation, kept coming up through real estate. So I started reading books. I got into flipping houses back then in '08. Around 2013, I kind of wanted to do something different, something bigger, have a bigger impact. So that's when I got into more larger scale deals where I could buy contiguous blocks before buying the block was a phrase. So I do different projects after I buy these blocks, different things that can impact our communities positively, specifically black and brown communities that have seen a lot of disinvestment and are going through gentrification. So that's kind of my mission now, that's what I do.
Yeah, man, it's interesting because we're on two polar opposite ends of the country. You way down there and way up there in Milwaukee and Texas, respectively, Houston. Yeah. And we have very similar missions, bro.
Right.
We didn't know each other, from Adam, but we were fighting the same fight.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you started off in college reading about kind of economic empowerment, wealth creation, et cetera, et cetera. Did you just go to the library and find that book? Did somebody put you on? What was that like?
Man, I don't remember how I started getting the books. The first book I read was Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was actually right after college. After I read that, I just wanted to dig in deeper because it kind of gave you the motivation and the principles, but it didn't give you a blueprint.
Yeah, it was no tactical real estate knowledge. It was just inspiration, right?
So I read that, then I read Think and Grow Rich. Yeah. And then, a couple other books that I was just reading passively that just kept talking about real estate. And so that's how I got into it. But I don't even remember what the exact spark was or what the exact initial conversation or direction point was to send me to those books. But I'm here now. So.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, man. Robert Kiyosaki is one of the biggest racists in the country.
He is, man. Man, he started feeling himself once he blew up, man.
Oh, my God, yeah. It's like it's interesting because it's similar to what we see in the marketplace, right? Yeah. Now it's like a lot of the real estate gurus are really marketing professionals and not necessarily real estate experts.
Yeah.
And then they just peddle this message, make a lot of money off the backs of people buying their product and then dress it up into real estate. But I say all that to say, man, I think you should write a new version.
Man, I would love to. And that's one of my next goals. Got to sit down, take the time out to really think it out.
Yeah.
And make sure that it has all the impact and it delivers the full message that I want to deliver. But I've definitely been working on that.
I got a book or two. I'm going to drop soon too. But yeah, let's rewind, man. So you were in Texas now, but you weren't. That's not where you started. You're not from Texas. Started from the beginning, man. Like, what was your household like? What was your family like? Where did you grow up, et cetera?
So I was born in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I lived there with both of my parents since I was 5. They got a divorce. My mom moved to Port Arthur, Texas when I was 7. So at 7, I moved to Texas with her, and I stayed there until 9th grade. At 9th grade, I got my girlfriend pregnant. So I became a teenage dad. My mom had some other business issues. She had a secretary that was actually stealing money from Medicare, like triple billing for clients. So my mom had her own psychology practice. So my mom ended up going to jail. So while they were investigating, and so I had to move back to Lake Charles with my dad. And so 10th grade through graduation, I was in Lake Charles. My son was born when I was 16. He's now 22, final semester of college on full academic scholarship.
Amazing.
Graduating with a degree in business and finance, and he's already working with a black wealth management firm in Houston. Yeah.
You are doing the right thing, my brother.
Yeah.
That's insane. Like, honestly, this is the first time I heard that about your mom in that way.
Yeah.
How did that impact you at the time? Like, as a young black man coming up, moving a little bit, but getting your mom taken away, who seemed to be doing the right thing as an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah. You know, it's funny, my mom didn't even realize she was really an entrepreneur. She just hated working for other people. So she just created her own practice, and she had gotten contracts with the hospitals. Like, Port Arthur's not a very big town, like 80,000 people, but all those psychological cases, the psych ward cases from the hospital, they would refer them to her after they got released from the hospitals. So yeah, she had built up a pretty good practice. And you know, I got to see a lot watching her manage that business as a small business. And then I went to college for civil engineering, and I tried to change my major to psychology. She told me no.
She said, "Don't come over here."
She was like, you don't listen to people's problems all day. But I like psychology. I like learning about how people think, how to deal with different personality types. So I apply it every day, even though I don't have a degree in it. You know, which, I mean, that's a lot of things. People go to college for things that they don't really use in the real world. I don't want to be a civil engineer. I just went for it because that's what I was told to do, be an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer.
That's it.
You know? Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy, bro. It's like when your mom goes through something like that, I know you have a greater appreciation to be a father.
Definitely.
And being there for your child.
Definitely. I mean, that shook up my whole world because, you know, the dependability of having your parents there is taken away, and you have a child on the way at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah, so from that age, I was kind of the responsible party for my son and my mom, because my son actually grew up in my mom's house.
Wow.
So I took care of both of them all the way till my son got out of high school. I still take care of my mom today. But yeah, I think that's part of the reason why I think I do what I do, because I always knew just working a job, I would not have the financial capacity to take care of everybody like I need to for the rest of my life and do it comfortably.
That's real.
Yeah. And it also helped me learn how to deal with uncomfortable circumstances.
Oh, for sure.
Because that
you
situation where, you're either gonna fold in that situation or you're gonna make it a motivator for you to do more. And so I chose to make it a motivation.
Yo, that's the essence of really why this podcast is called The Rose That Grew, if you want me to be honest. Like, The Rose That Grew is obviously a nod to Tupac, The Rose That Grew from Concrete. Like, what you're describing, being a 9th grader, losing his mother to, prison system, and then having a child as a 9th grade child, right? Like, that is concrete.
Yeah.
And you blossom, bro. You have really blossomed and grown. So I want to give you your flowers on that one, man. That is amazing, bro. Literally, this podcast was created so people there could know people like you exist. And anyone dealing with something similar to that, like, we could talk business and numbers all day long, but that's not the intent of this.
Right.
You are the personification of The Rose That Grew, and I thank you for doing what you do, bro.
Appreciate that, brother. 100%.
For real. I just wanted to put that out there, for real.
Yeah.
So, all right, you in college, you had this child, you ended up going to Southern
University.
What was that process like when you were like, okay, I got a kid on the way, or I got a kid, and you got a 3-year-old, and you're selecting where you're about to go next? Tell me what was going through your mind at the time.
Man, for me, it was just about getting to that next step to be able to provide for my family. At that point, I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship. I thought anybody that even had a business degree just worked at a bank. I didn't know anything about it. But I kept hearing everybody say, be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. So I was actually going to go to LSU. I had a partial scholarship there. But then my dad...
For civil engineering or something?
For civil engineering.
Okay, nice.
Civil engineering. Yep. And then, but then I was contacted by Southern University where my dad went to school. They had a full scholarship, guaranteed internship every summer, and a guaranteed job when you graduate. So, yeah.
Not a bad setup.
Not a bad setup at all.
Let me go on over there.
So, yeah, I said, let me do it. But that was the best decision I ever made, man.
Really?
Going to HBCU, the network that I met there, to be around a bunch of young black people that had the exact same mindset as me.
That's right.
I didn't have that. I didn't have that at all growing up. And so, man, that really changed my culture. Most of my closest friends come from that network.
Still to this day.
To this day. Yeah, man. So that was powerful. Players don't make us our fire.
All right.
Frat parties and all kind of fun. So, man, that's another brotherhood that I established going to college there. So, man, I have no regrets. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Speak on that a little bit for me, because most entrepreneurs, the rhetoric around entrepreneurship right now is like, hey, just go out, do your own thing, take my course, I'll teach you how to do this, and you shouldn't go to college. What are your thoughts on that, man?
Man, college, it prepares you in so many ways for life. If you're gonna be an entrepreneur, you can learn a lot in school. Now, the drawback from college is most people don't realize that early enough. I feel like because you go to college, you get this degree, you've worked so hard for 4 years, your goal is now to prove to everybody, I'm about to use this degree and I'm gonna climb this corporate ladder.
That's
right?
real.
So a lot of times what happens is once you get in corporate America, everybody tells you, you can be the next CEO. You're in a company with 40,000 people. Ain't everybody gonna be the CEO? There's only one
Not
CEO.
at all. Right.
So most of the time it takes you a few years to catch on to that and get frustrated if you are gonna be the entrepreneur that's gonna leave that job. But by then a lot of people have debt, they've established families, they got so many obligations that it's hard for them to pull away at that point. So for that group, college can actually slow your process down. But you learn so much going to school and being around so many different personality types, and that's what's more important.
Learning about people.
Learning about people, yeah, and establishing those relationships. That's much more important than the actual curriculum and the actual courses that are in your field of study.
I agree 100%, bro.
Yeah.
Like, if I could do one thing over, I would build more meaningful relationships with the people that I went to college with.
Yeah.
Some of my best friends to this day came from college for sure, but outside of my core group, I don't really talk to nobody from that period of time in my life. It's crazy. So, yeah, most definitely, I think, definitely to the people that are listening, if you're around that high school age, college age, take heed to what Chris is saying and understand what the intent of college is and what you should strive to take away from it. So if you're there now and you're thinking about, hey, maybe I should leave, etc., maybe you should reframe why you are there and then take full advantage of the opportunity that's at your disposal.
I know we're going to get into some of this later, but let me give you two key relationships that I got from college. My frat brother, my line brother actually pledged with me, was the one that introduced me to home investors. Because that's who, the We Buy Ugly Houses people, they like the original wholesalers.
Yeah, for sure.
The first
Those sounds were everywhere.
Yeah, the first house I flipped was a home investor house because he worked for them.
Gotcha.
And so he put me in the game on flipping houses in 2008. Then most recently, I became the only black development partner with the city of Houston.
Nice.
And the chairman of the board of the Houston Housing Authority is an alumni of my same school. Right? And he's your frat brother.
You already know.
Right. And so, yeah, because of those relationships, there was an extra level of bonding and connection that I had with him that allowed me to get into the door for that opportunity.
No, that's facts.
Yeah.
Super facts. So you said you met the guy from We Buy Ugly Houses back in 2008. It just makes me think, did you have mentors growing up, like from adolescence, high school, college, or even now? What has that looked like for you? And how has it impacted your business?
That's a great question. I didn't have mentors growing up.
Me either.
Yeah, I didn't have I did not have mentors growing up, man. I didn't start having mentors until that point when I started getting into flipping houses.
Okay.
Because I knew I needed to accelerate that transition, right? And up to that point, having jobs, going to school, we're taught to do everything ourselves.
Yeah.
But I realized that there's a shortcut to that. You can tap in with somebody that already has experience and knowledge. And if you got to pay them, if you got to give them some time, you got to do something. But you get a shortcut to the same goal you're trying to reach without having to bump your head and try to figure it out. So my first mentor with flipping houses, home investors again, one of the contractors that they were using, he was renovating 30 to 40 houses a month for them.
A month?
A month. Hispanic brother named.
He was getting to it.
Yeah, Edgar Alvarez. So I still use Edgar to this day, but he was my first real mentor because he showed me what houses to pick. He showed me, why and how much it was going to cost to renovate them. Because as long as I made money flipping the house, he made money doing the construction work.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
If he teach you the game, he's still winning.
Exactly.
So question, before we pivot off of that, can you tell maybe the people a few top elements of how to select a house to flip? What are some best practices and some worst practices? What do you look for and what should you not look for?
Man, so the thing about flipping houses is no matter how well you plan it out, there's always going to be what I call an uncontrolled variable. There's something that's going to be there that you don't know. Once you open up a wall, once you pull up a floor, you're going to find something that you didn't think was there that's going to be an added expense on that project. So what you can do, though, is have a really tight construction budget. And you have to have a good contractor. I also recommend having an inspector go through the house and point out, not only what's currently wrong, but what may go wrong during your project or right after your project. I don't think there's really a right or wrong way to pick a property. You really just have to look at the numbers. You're going to buy it for a certain amount. You're going to put so much in the renovations, and then you got to be able to evaluate what your exit strategy is. What's it going to be worth at the end? Are you going to sell it? Are you going to refinance it and keep it as a rental? Or are you going to put it on as a short-term rental? Those different characteristics, those different factors will help you determine if it's a good deal or not. You also want to be in an area where there's high demand, if it's going to be for sale or if it's going to be for rent. If you're thinking about buying something for a rental property, how many other vacant rentals are there in the area? Do you have a lot of competition? What's the price point on those? If it's going to be for sale, how long do the houses sit on the market? You don't want to flip something, even if it's at the right price, but it takes 3 or 4 months for you to sell it, and you've got loans and everything else and carrying costs that's eating away at your profits. So I think for me, the most important factors are not necessarily the deal, but the team that you have around you to help you evaluate the deal to make sure that it is a good deal. Yeah.
I think that's across the board in real estate, right?
Yeah.
Because I think I've heard you say that single-family home development is actually easier than flipping.
Oh, it is.
Right?
Yeah. Ground-up construction for the same reason I just mentioned. So when you're flipping the house, you don't really know what your budget is. You can set a budget, but you don't really know what's going to cost you in the end because you don't know what's going to come up while you're doing a renovation.
That's right.
With ground-up construction, there are no unknowns. Everything is brand new. You're starting from from one trade going to another trade, from underground to foundation to framing.
Yeah.
It is just project management at that point. So it's a lot easier, a lot cleaner process.
Love it. Let's go back to Southern for a second, man. Just transitioning from Southern into becoming a civil engineer. You studied civil engineering, obviously graduated from there and took that job. What was that first job when you got out of college?
Man, so actually my first job was pretty cool. I was working for Canadian National Railroad. They put me as an assistant project manager over a $100 million development project in Memphis, Tennessee. They were converting an old rail terminal into a different style of railroad terminal. So I was managing a design build project for HDR, which is one of the biggest engineering construction companies in the country.
Wow.
So at 23, 24, I was managing about $25 million of that project. I was over 2 railroad bridges being built. I was over stabilization of about 120 acres of land. And then I was partly responsible for a locomotive repair shop being built. So that was kind of like my baptism by fire, heavy industrial construction.
Gotcha.
So that, coupled with me flipping houses on the side, was my conduit for how I got into development. So once again, people bash college, people bash jobs, but all those experiences have played big roles in who I am today.
Man, I'll just touch on me for a second too, because it's the same way, where people always ask both of us, how do you get in development? How do you get in development? There's really no path. There's no one direct path, and there's no right answer or wrong answer. My path was lending and finance. I worked at a bank, left there, spent out, purchased a 4-unit, renovated that, leased it out, did a terrible job underwriting. And I understood the value of like reserves and operating expenses and all of these things that I took for granted when I was younger. And then as time went on, it was like, okay, I started working at 2 CDFIs and doing commercial lending. And I was seeing other people's deals and like, oh, okay, that's how these deals work. So I hear the term creative finance in the real estate space a lot. The way that I see it from the commercial side is how can you be creative and solve problems within the capital stack? Development is simple, right? It's really your sources, which are your debt, your equity, your grants, et cetera, and your uses, which is the acquisition cost, the hard cost, soft cost, developer fee, et cetera. When those 2 things are aligned with the ancillary partners' goals, that's when you have a development. And for you, the way that you got into that was through construction. It's like, yo, I know these numbers, I know this gonna hit, I'm gonna manage this. So that was the value that you brought. But then you also learn finance on a smaller scale at a lower risk. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, let me make sure that these numbers are in line. You said the most important thing is these numbers. let me make sure these numbers are in line, and then you compare those two things together and then grow up and scale.
Right. 100%, bro.
So it's interesting that, people get into this space from many, many different areas and many different ways, and there's no one right answer.
Right.
But I hope through this conversation, people could take pieces of what you did and what I did, if you do have aspirations of becoming a developer, and then finding your own way.
Yeah, yep, 100%.
So, no, that's what's up, man. So took the job, worked on these projects.
Yeah.
Super dope. You then got this entrepreneurial itch at some point.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. How did you go from, hey, I'm gonna do this 9 to 5 to I'm fully on my own? It sounded like there was a transition period where you're doing a little bit of both.
I was doing both for a while, bro. I was considering real estate as just an early retirement plan. I wasn't even thinking about really quitting my job. So for 4 or 5 years, I was flipping houses. I had built up some rentals. I was selling some of them, just keep cash flow rolling in on a larger scale. And then, man, I was working on another big project. I was, as a corporate employee for another railroad, Burlington Northern, I was over a company that was building the first new refinery in the United States in like 40 years. And but people don't know, people should know, is supply chain for big industrial facilities like that, everything moves by rail in bulk. And so this new refinery needed a full supply chain model to show, okay, this is where all our origins coming for our raw crude oil. This is our other feedstocks we need to come in to process to make gasoline and diesel, and then all the byproducts going out and the finished products going out. Well, it was 4 months before the refinery opened. The CEO of the company was not helping with the supply chain information that I needed. I'm in a meeting with the VP of my department sitting next to me. I'm literally pulling the emails up on the computer and showing them on the screen while I'm doing my presentation about the challenges I'm having with this particular customer. He's like, man, good luck. I hope you figure that out. Great presentation.
Wow.
But watch this. So a month later, that company makes a public announcement that the refinery is going to be open. Warren Buffett owns BNSF that I worked for at that time. So Warren Buffett then asked the CEO of the company, what's going on with the supply chain plan for this refinery? It rolls downhill, it gets to my VP. He tells them, I don't know what the hell Chris is doing. I don't know what the problem is.
Oh my God.
And so that's when that light bulb went off for me, bro. It was like, no matter how well you communicate, no matter how hard you try, somebody above you can make a decision that can ruin your career.
Absolutely.
Whether they're doing it out of malice, whether they're doing it out of ignorance, or they're just trying to, protect themselves.
That's right.
They can make a determination that can end your career. So at that point, I was like, okay, look, I basically replaced my income with the house, with the real estate shit.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna bet on myself. I'm gonna bet on myself.
Yeah.
But the coolest part about it was my direct boss, my general director, was cool. So I said, I'm making a decision, I'm leaving, but I don't have to quit in 2 weeks. I'll stay as long as you need me to stay until you find my replacement. I'll even train them. So I stayed for 6 weeks. I don't know too many people that say they can quit a job
and still be.
And look, and my boss threw me a going away party at his house and invited the whole team, a pool party.
That's how you know you was bringing value.
Right.
So the VP was just on some pure BS, for real.
And I found out after I left that he couldn't even handle the account either. The executive VP had to take over the account. Yeah, but that was my eye opener, bro. It's like, bet on yourself.
And since then, you haven't looked back? What year was that?
2015.
So you've been on since then?
2015, yeah. And you know what I still do today? I still do consulting work on the side because I have built so many relationships with all these big oil and gas companies. So some smaller companies that may want to get service contracts from an Exxon, from a Shell, from a Chevron. Anything related to the supply chain, railroad cars, whatever, I got those contacts. So I use my LinkedIn to reach out to those smaller companies, or they reach out to me now and asking me for how do I get in. I do consulting work with them, help them get contracts. I still make 120, 150 grand a year off just doing that.
You're a smart brother, man.
Yeah.
Smart brother, for real.
Yeah.
Is that a byproduct of your experience or the effort that you put in?
I think I'm just inherently blessed with the ability to think creatively.
Okay. Critical thinking is
because a lot of things I'm doing, nobody else really taught them to me. It's just things that I think about on different scales. Like if a corporation is paying me this type of money for this job, clearly there's smaller businesses that need somebody with that skill set but they can't afford to hire that person.
Absolutely.
So you can come in as a consultant and don't even charge them anything up front. Just say, hey, I'm performance based. If I help you close a deal, you give me a cut.
Percentage.
Yeah, that's it.
And you've been closing them deals since.
Been closing them deals since, bro. I've helped 2 customers build railroad terminals since I quit that job, just by telling them where they needed to be. The last one was for Exxon. One of my clients has built one for Exxon in just South Baton Rouge.
Mind blown. One of the things that I know and like about you is you're a phenomenal networker. You build great relationships. You're very humble, and you are also honest and transparent. You know what I mean? Like, you are authentically you.
Yeah.
And can you speak to how that has impacted your life and your business? And then also talk about, even within that, the LinkedIn aspect of business development as it relates to networking.
Yeah, man, relationships are much more powerful than what degree you have, what school you went to, what your background is. Everything in life is a people game, right? And whether you want to be in sales or not, every day you're selling something. You're selling an idea, you're selling a concept, you're selling a business, or you're selling yourself.
That's right.
Right? And the only way to do that is to network. You have to talk to people. And so what I've realized is that I can get into doors I would never be able to get to on my own by knowing someone that's already in that room. Right?
That's fair.
Yeah. And so that's really what I've been doing, man. Yeah, I mean, everything I have now it came from an unlikely source,
Gotcha.
right? We even think about this. The reason why you and I are here is two networks we were in. Number one, Earn Your Leisure.
Yeah.
Right? We were both
Shout
on
out
the
to EYL.
Yep. We were both on the podcast, didn't know each other, but because someone introduced me to them and they put me on the show, I started following them, then you were on the show.
Yeah.
That's how we met.
Yeah.
The other one is this group we're in right now. Because of social media, that network, Elijah invited us all together.
That's right.
And now we're here, man. And the reason I'm doing the big project I have now is because taking some nuggets from you, taking some nuggets from Michael Johnson, it's been a great benefit to me. The relationship I got with the Housing Authority came from being in a private cigar lounge where he's a member. You know, it's all relationship driven.
Love it, man.
Yeah.
Before we get to the big project, we got to transition from flipping to that interim portion. In the last, 4 or 5 years, that's when you became this phenom.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
How can you talk to me about some of your most notable projects? I mean, By the Block obviously comes to mind. The Mod comes to mind. Can you speak to, let's do By the Block first.
Okay.
Can you speak to By the Block? What is that project? What was the total project cost and size? And how did you create the opportunity for that to happen?
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so the By the Block project is me creating an initiative that shows people like us can collectively invest, use our spending power to control large parcels, large pieces of real estate in our own neighborhoods without having to be mad at LeBron, Oprah, Diddy for not buying a neighborhood after they get all their money, right?
That's real.
And so what it is I bought a portfolio, 18 houses, 2 commercial buildings that was owned by an older black couple. They were retiring. Their kids didn't want to take it over because they did not have any systems set up. So their kids watched them work every day, go over there, try to collect rents, do repairs. And the kids have their own lives. They're adults now. They're like, I don't want to take on that headache. Had they put up systems in place like property management and stuff, kids may have just taken it because it would have just been an ATM for them.
Can't have generational wealth unless you have generational systems.
That's it.
Connie S. Falls, that's where I got it from. She's gonna be on soon, but I wanted to get that drop. That's a fact, that's a bar.
100%. And so the opportunity for me was to take it over from them so that it didn't go into the wrong hands.
Okay.
Right? And so I started talking to them. They were asking like $1.5 million for it, but they didn't have any trailing 12 months of accounting, which is usually what a bank needs to see to value what the property is. So I said, look, you don't have anything lined up. Why don't you owner finance it to me? Like, I can't pay you 1.5. Let's determine the number. So I talked them down $250,000, 1.25 million. And then I said, but I need you to be the bank. I'm gonna give you a down payment and you give me some time to get all the accounting set up and straight, maybe give me 2 years. At the end of the 2 years, I'll be able to refinance and pay you off the balance that I owe you. And so, yeah.
Was it an on-market deal or off-market deal? How did you come across that?
Crazy. So it was actually on market,
okay,
but it was priced so high nobody was looking at it. The way I got it was a wholesaler reached out to me on Instagram.
Really?
And he's like, man, look, I found this one address, I traced it, I found the owner's contact information. They said, instead of just this one house that I asked them about, they said it's actually a whole block of houses that they own and they want to sell it all together. So he called me and he's like, can you help me sell this? And I started looking at it, I was like, damn, I think I want to keep this.
I want to buy it.
Yeah, because it was in a historically black neighborhood going through gentrification.
Lyons Avenue.
Yeah, Lyons Avenue. Long-term stable tenants. I mean, so it's low risk, right? because those people aren't going nowhere. Like some of them been there 20, 30 years. So if you buy it at the right price, you're buying cash flow.
Yeah.
You're buying into a system that's already proven.
Very true.
And so I negotiated a 1.25 purchase price, but they wanted 50% down. Okay, so but I knew the value of the property was going to be at least $2 million in a year, which it is now.
Once you got the T12s in line.
Yeah. Once I got all that, yeah, and plus just the land value appreciation because of all the redevelopment going on in the neighborhood, all the gentrification going on.
That's a fact.
Yeah. So they told me 600 down. I was like, okay, cool. So what I could have done was gone to a few of my lenders, a few of my other investment friends. We could have put up a couple hundred apiece and bought it. I was like, no, this is an opportunity for me to do a crowd fund.
Gotcha.
So that's what I did. So I did Regulation CF crowd fund. I made the minimum investment $250, which this is kind of revolutionary for us. It democratizes us being able to pull our capital together to invest in bigger $1 million deals, because before you had to be accredited to do that.
That's right.
Right, you had to have that net worth of $1 million excluding your primary residence,
yeah.
or make over $200,000 a year for the past 2 years. Well, this changed the game. The Jobs Act changed the game thanks to Barack Obama and his administration. So $250 per person minimum. I had people put in as much as $10,000. Raised $1 million in almost 1.1 million in 7 months. No marketing, ads, just getting on podcasts, just explaining the mission. We're buying a block in our community. We're protecting these residents. We're gonna have upside on it, and so that's what we did. So I was able to raise that 1.1 million. I took 600,000 as the down payment. I used another about 350 to do renovations on the property. So I upgraded parking lot, did landscaping, put screens in everybody's windows to help with the electricity bill, and then handle all the deferred maintenance. So I didn't go in everybody's unit and make it pristine, because that would have been a capital expense that I would not have gotten a return on because I was not raising anybody's rents.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So if they're already happy living in there, I'm gonna go in and make sure there's no plumbing issues, make there's no electrical issues, make sure the flooring is solid, make sure the roof doesn't have any leaks. Do those types of things so that I don't have any unexpected big expenses coming up.
Awesome.
But everything else, they're happy there, so I'm not gonna mess with that. So that's what we did. It's been working out pretty well, man. I got it after I finished that. I got it reappraised, and it reappraised at 1.8 million about 11 months after I bought it.
Let's get it. Then
Yeah.
you refinanced it out, and you were good to go.
Yep. Refinance is good to go. And then what I did also, because some people think I'm crazy when I say I'm not going to raise the rents. Everybody's asking, well, what about property taxes? What about this? What about that? Well, I'm taking the 2 vacant commercial buildings, and I'm putting them back online. So I renovated those. One of them is now a pier space, which is a short-term event space rental, $95 an hour. It's a 1,500 square foot house. If I wanted to rent it out, I probably could have got $1,750 for it. If I would have made it, an office for, say, a dentist or a chiropractor or something like that, probably could have got $2,500. If I'd have put it on Airbnb, maybe $3,500 a month, about $150 a night. But I put it on Pier Space, it makes $95 an hour. That 1,500 square foot house generates $6,000 to $10,000 a month. The rents from all 18 houses in the back.
It's not even that much.
Right. The rents from all 18 houses in the back is like $11,000. So I damn near doubled the revenue every month.
Without increasing their rents at all.
Without increasing their rents at all. Yeah.
There's gonna be a month where you make more off those commercials. That's only one of the two. That's not even.
The other one's not even finished yet. I'm still going through the permit process to get that one done.
Wow.
So it's gonna be about a 2,000 square foot venue. It's gonna be more of an open concept, but the same use. It'll be a pier space too.
So the people that bought in with you went from bringing in 11,000. Let's say operating expenses was half of that. You clearing about 6 net, but now you bringing in an extra 10.
Yeah.
Well, really 6 to 10 on one, and another probably 7 to 12 on the other. You looking at 20 grand.
Yeah, 20 grand.
Additional income just from those two.
And so the way I set the crowdfund up is, the crowdfund, you can sell equity ownership. So what I did was, since I sold 40% of the LLC that owns the property.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And so in exchange, all of the shareholders, I take 40% of the net profits of the rent, and I distribute that out to all of them as distributions twice a year. So to date, their share value has gone up, of course, because the property value has gone up.
Yep.
I'm on my 3rd round of distributions to them, which first crowdfund actually do 3 rounds of distributions. So they've all made a 16% return on their money in the first
already
in the first 18 months. Yeah. and it's only going to go up from there, bro.
Not a bad return, brother.
Nah.
And is that dividend return or dividend and appreciation?
Dividend and appreciation.
Okay, cool.
So just dividend is 12%.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's still amazing,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, 4% twice a year. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. That's pretty solid. Okay.
Yep.
So that was about a block. That's when you really started to pop on the gram and the internet and things like that.
Yeah.
I noticed your messages, again, kind of similar to mine, right? It's like, you're not doing these things because you're just trying to make a bunch of money.
Right.
Yes, you're gonna make money. It's no doubt about that. And you have been making money. But the purpose behind what you're doing is leading you more so than the profit. Speak to that a little bit for me.
Man, we have to regain ownership of our communities. It does you no good to be an independent millionaire, and then the only neighborhood you can go to, they don't want you there, right? And we have to also remember that at one point in time, we owned our own communities. Before desegregation, we had to have our own communities. So my focus is really to bring that back. We've had independent millionaires since emancipation. We've had from the Madam C.J. Walkers to everybody, after that. That does not solve the problems we have in our communities. So for me, I believe that I'm a social impact investor and developer. So I'm making sure that I have economic control, economic say-so, and I own a large footprint in whatever community I'm in, and I want as many people as possible to come along on that process. That's the only way we change things. You can't control politics, you can't control the school system if you don't have ownership in those communities.
That's real. It's I say this all the time, man. Everyone should have ownership, but everyone shouldn't be an entrepreneur.
100%.
Those are two different things, and we shouldn't
100%.
conflate them. But I absolutely agree. When you have that ownership, you take pride in it in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And it's up to us really to be the ones to create more opportunities of ownership
Yeah.
through real estate for our people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I commend you for doing it.
Yeah.
And we just getting started. Yeah.
We just getting started, bro. And let me add one more thing, because you said that's so powerful. I have shareholders that invested $250, $1,000. They grew up in Fifth Ward. They still live there. They're older people.
That's amazing.
They're renters. They're like, I never thought I could say I own a piece of my own neighborhood.
Right.
And they're like, I never want to sell my shares. How would I pass this down to my kids? Thank you for giving them the opportunity. And they drive by it every day on their way to work or wherever they're going, and they can say, hey, I own a piece of that.
And that Lyons Avenue has been historically black. I think I saw
Yes.
something that said something. In 1968, it was like the toughest, baddest neighborhood or something like that?
Yeah, it was. So from like
In Texas?
from like 1890 to 1957, that was the Black Wall Street district. So all the black businesses in Fifth Ward were there. However, after desegregation, a lot of people left.
Okay.
A lot of businesses were abandoned, and then what was left was
It changed.
it changed. So Fifth Ward was called the Bloody Nickel for a long time. That's how bad it was.
The Bloody Nickel.
The Bloody
Fifth
Nickel.
Ward.
The Bloody Nickel, bro.
Don't go over there.
No, don't go over there.
Jeez. But now, hey, man, you took that nickel, you shined it off, and it's...
Yeah.
you
I mean,
rest-
the street has changed. Even the corridor I'm in, the first black movie theater that was in Houston has been redeveloped. It's now a performing arts hall.
Love it.
There's an all-boys college prep school. It's got 98% success rate. Kids going to college. So it's a lot of redevelopment going on now. It's coming back to life.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So prior to you doing the By the Block, if we go a couple blocks really up the street, you have a single-family home development community that you started.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
How did you go about that? I think you purchased like an old grocery store or something like that,
Yeah.
and you had to tear it down, and we had a sidebar conversation, and I'll just bring it to the forefront. It was like, yo, at that time, you had to do an internal gut check, right? It was
Yeah.
like, yo, my income is coming from the things that are on this site.
Yeah.
I got to tear it down to even be able to produce this new stuff. Like,
Yeah.
how and when do I make that happen?
Yeah.
But can you talk to the people a little bit about that project?
Yeah. So once again, most of my projects are in neighborhoods where they're not bankable yet. You can't go to a financial institution and ask for money and them give it to you. So
Can you talk about why things aren't bankable and then get back into it?
yeah, so things that
What's
are
bankable and what's not bankable?
So a bank decides whether or not they're going to give you a loan based off of the risk profile of what you're doing. So
Right.
do they see any other activity in that area that says, hey, whatever he's proposing is going to be successful? So if you go somewhere like where I was buying this block, there was no recent real estate transactions on that scale. There was a vacant grocery store that had been abandoned for like 3 or 4 years. So the bank is not going to see any value in that. They're going to want to know where's the cash flow, because it doesn't matter. Sometimes you can have $1 million in the bank or more, but if they don't see you coming to the table with any
plan.
recurring revenue to make payments to them every month, they will consider you very high risk. So I got a property that's not attractive to them. It doesn't have any cash flow at the point in time. So there's no way I'm going to convince them to give me the $500,000 that the owner wanted for that property at that time.
That's real. Yeah.
So I went to him and did the same thing. I said, look, I can't go to the bank and get money. I need you to owner finance this to me. So $500,000 back then, everybody thought I was crazy. That may sound really low to a lot of people in different areas if you're in like a high ticket market like New York. Yeah. But in Houston, you know, the bloody nickel, everybody thought I was crazy for even accepting his terms on that. But what I knew was the redevelopment was coming to that area, watching the trends in the city, and I said, you know, eventually it's going to be worth way more than this $500,000. That's
right.
Yeah. So I got it into contract like that. I put some of my money in. I had an investor put up a little bit of money to do some basic repairs on the property. And then what I did was I turned it into SROs because it had the grocery store, had a 2-unit apartment above it, then I had 5 houses on the block. But instead of putting a lot of money into renovations, what I did was I turned it into single-room occupancy rentals for parolees.
Oh, okay.
So nonviolent offenders, but they were paying me $350 per room.
Nice.
So I took a house that as is would have rented for maybe $700. I'm pulling $1,400 a month off of it.
Not bad.
You know? And look, so they've been in prison 10 years. They've become tradesmen. They've got carpenter experience, plumbing experience.
They're fixing the whole thing.
They're fixing everything, right? And they're just happy to have a place to live.
Yes.
Because it's really hard for a felon to get approved anywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
They wanted somewhere to have dignity and someone that respected them and understood their story. It's like, yo, I'm a product of circumstance. Likely, I wasn't just this bad human being, man. I'm trying to get better. And most places won't allow me to do that. So I commend you for stepping into that.
Right.
And getting that.
And then my first foray was trying to get a grocery store to come take over the abandoned grocery store.
I know that's tough.
I talked to all the different site selection committees for all the local grocers. Everybody said the demographics here, the disposable income here does not meet any type of qualification for us to even consider investing that type of money in that neighborhood.
Say that again. So for anybody that's watching this, I think our customer demographic, user, watcher, et cetera, are probably going to be people that have interest in doing similar things, right? They're here because you developed, because I developed, et cetera. The grocery store told him, because there isn't enough income in the area, that this is not somewhere where they want to place investment. So there's a lot of theory around, hey, I want to do a grocery store. You had that same experience. But the reality was, in the numbers, it just didn't work.
Correct. Grocery stores have a profit margin of 2 to 4%. That's it. Because you got to think about all of this perishable food that they buy, all the fresh produce. If it doesn't sell, they've lost all their money. You have an enormous electricity bill because all the refrigeration and everything you have there. You have a big staff in that building. You know, it's a huge building. You got rent or you got a high mortgage. Overhead. And where the real margins are made is off of the fresh produce and the meats. That's the highest margin items. So if you put a grocery store in a low-income neighborhood, most people are buying canned goods. They're buying cereal.
They're not buying fresh produce.
They're not buying fresh produce.
They can afford it all the time.
They can't afford it. So for a grocery store to want to go into that neighborhood, even if they decide to, it's really going to be charity work. Because even if the city grants them all the money to build the building,
it's not sustainable.
Operationally they're still not sustainable.
So we got to subsidize the operation in addition to the cost to build.
Yes, 100%.
That's so interesting. And I just wanted to say one thing. When he mentioned profit margins, for anyone that doesn't understand, typically business is broken out into revenue, expenses, and profit. And there's certain percentages relative revenue that you can, that's the profit margin. So let's say a grocery store or a business, this is for any business really. If a business brought in $1 million and had a 3% profit, let's just take the 2 to 4 average, that means that they're bringing in $30,000 of profit on an annual basis.
Right.
So if you're selling $1 million worth of stuff and only taking home $30,000, there's a lot of risk for that type of a business and that type of an operator, because 30 grand is a refrigerator going out and all of your, poultry expiring or so, right? 30 grand is servicing a water pipe that bursted in this place and now you're not functional for X amount of time. You build in for expenses, and reserves, but there's a lot of risk to that.
Right.
So anyone that has an interest in building a grocery store, take those things into consideration. Like the goal of this is to really educate. And I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because people don't always understand the other side and why food deserts exist.
Right, yeah, 100%. And so that was actually my motivation for what I ended up doing with the property. That was my first foray into saying, okay, wait a minute. If they're telling me there's not enough people with the type of income that's needed here, let me start creating.
Let's make it.
Let's start creating the housing that attracts them back, so that we can get the grocery store back. You got to be practical in the steps you go to reach the same goal.
That's right.
So that's what I did. So at that point in time, thankfully, another builder had bought a bunch of lots in like 2011 in the area. This was like 2018 by this time, 2017. He started construction on his lots, but his were very deep in Fifth Ward.
Okay.
And so, but where I am, my property is like close to the freeway, easy access to downtown, easy access to get to Walmart, Kroger.
Much more favorable.
More favorable, yeah. So I'm like, so if he can do that there, I feel like I can do it here. And so that was my goal. So okay, let me try to go get some funding to redevelop the property.
Gotcha.
But the risk was still so high because the bank was like, well, you still have all these abandoned buildings. It seems like a lot of risk. You got to tear them down before we even consider it. So that's what you were talking about.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So the SRO thing, so what I had to do was take my property manager. I gave her end of year bonus. I helped her find another property. So she went and seller financed something else, moved all of the residents over there, and then I took a big risk and tore everything down to go back to the same bank and ask them, okay, look, it's a clean slate now.
No.
Are y'all interested in the project? Then they start saying, okay, well, do you have any comparables, any other new construction going on in that zip code?
Come on, bro.
Right. The answer was no.
Obviously.
So 23 different lenders I went to, all told me no at that point. So now, like as you said earlier, like I'm like, damn, what did I do? I've removed all of my revenue, and now I got to figure out.
Man.
That's a gut check for real, bro. Yeah.
So because you care so much about your neighborhood and your people, you are dying on the vine, really.
Right.
It's interesting. Do you think that if you were white, you would have got it?
I feel like they would have probably given me a little bit more of a look. Yeah.
But not even for sure based on economics.
Not for sure, because sometimes banks will take a risk on who they want to take a risk on.
That's right.
You know, and
it's relationship.
It's relationship. Well, once again,
we just don't have a lot of those relationships to be able to get the plug.
Yeah.
And the reason why I asked that is just because, you know, as much as we're advocates for blackness, I want us to also understand that everything isn't rooted in race too.
Right.
Like, yes, if, you know, the good old boys, they have a relationship, of course they're gonna get it because of the relationship. But if a white guy also didn't have a relationship, if you were just white and didn't have it, I would actually argue you probably wouldn't have got that either because it just didn't make financial sense.
Yeah.
You know, exceptions are made because of privilege and relationships,
Yeah.
but they are not gonna go outside of the best interest of their own pocket at times without that relationship just because you're a certain race. So I wanted to make sure that we understood that the devil's in the details and the numbers at the end of the day.
Right, 100%.
That's what really makes these things go.
Yeah, 100%.
And you always speak to this thing, bro. It's one of my favorite things about you. You call it the success triangle.
The success triangle, yes.
Tell the people about the success triangle.
Yeah. So the success triangle is the approach I use for everything now. It's the 3 pillars that you need no matter what you're doing. You need 3 things to be successful at anything. Number 1, you need the knowledge and experience. Number 2, you need the actual opportunity. And then number 3, you need the money. But most people think, and we're taught through the education system, that you have to come to the table with all 3 yourself. In reality, you don't. You bring one of those to the table, and then you go and find people that have the other 2, and that's your shortcut to reach whatever type of success, you know, whatever goal you have. So at that point, when they told me no, I had to get creative once again. So I went back to the guy that I seller financed the block from, and my first thing was like, well, let me remove all the debt that's on the property. So I went to him and I said, hey man, I know we got a 10-year plan where I'm gonna pay you off over 10 years. How would you like to get paid off in 2 or 3? He was like, well, how you gonna do that? Of course I want that.
Of course.
I was like, well, this is what I need you to do. Let's go into a joint venture. I'm gonna create an LLC. You become my joint venture partner. You're gonna take the loan off of the land, and then you're gonna put the land into the joint venture. Now when I go to the bank, I'm gonna say I'm 50% owner of the LLC that owns this land free and clear.
You got equity.
Now I got equity.
250 grand, which is 50%. Yeah. Well, really 500.
500 to the bank. 500 to the bank. Then they're gonna ask, where's the cash at? Okay. Well, I had one of my friends who used to work for Shell who had a 401k with $250,000 in it.
Wow. That's a good friend to have.
That is. So she knew what I was trying to do. Kim, we rolled that money over to a self-directed IRA. With a self-directed IRA, you can invest in whatever you want, any type of asset. So she became an investor in the project. So now I got the land, $500,000 in equity in the land, and $250,000 in the bank.
You're in the game.
I'm in the game. So then I built the first 3 houses to set my comps so that I can go back to the bank and say, guess what? I built these 3, I've sold them, and this is what they sold for. Now the bank understands, okay, makes sense. That same bank now, the last bank told me no, gave me $1 million line to do the next phase.
That's genius, bro.
Yeah.
Now that you're a lot older and wiser and gone through so many things, bro, what advice would you even give to your younger self? What would you tell Chris from 10 years ago?
Man, I would say the shortcut is always to find somebody that's already done what you're trying to do and figure out how you can bring value to them to get whatever you're trying to get done. Even if you got to take a smaller percentage, give away 60% of a deal to somebody just to learn. You get paid to learn versus you fumbling the bag, fumbling the ball, and not being able to complete the deal at all.
That's real.
And then once you bring them that value, you know, they're going to reciprocate in most chances. You're going to be exposed to their network, and then that's going to create even more opportunities for you. I think that's the biggest headache we all have because we all try to figure it out. We all try to study. We want to go watch YouTube videos. We want to buy courses. But still, if you don't have anybody in your circle that's actually done what you're trying to do, you know, you're still fighting an uphill battle.
So obviously you've done a lot, you know, in your past life. Let's talk about what you're doing now in the future.
Yeah.
The mod.
The mod. Okay, so same neighborhood, same half-mile radius. My largest project I've ever worked on. I'm taking a 5.3-acre church site, which, especially in the black communities, churches have a lot of the prime real estate. But the way worship has changed, a lot of them don't need those extremely large campuses that they had before. A lot of them are losing those campuses. So it's a great opportunity for us to go in and figure out a repurpose of those sites. So this site is right at the intersection of the 2 busiest highways in Houston, and one of the most visible parcels of land. It's a landmark in the city. I bought it for $6.7 million. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna convert it over to a multi-family housing. So it's gonna be a 290-unit apartment complex. It's about a $64 million project. I'm also bringing on the same site the top performing black charter school system in the country as the anchor tenant. So we're gonna solve 2 problems. Number one, we're gonna bring more of those higher incomes back into the community.
Like you've been doing?
Like I've been doing without displacing anybody.
That's right.
Right? And then the other one is I'm bringing a higher level of education back to the neighborhood too, which is the number one reason why most of us don't move back, because we're concerned about the schools for our kids.
Facts.
Yeah. So their other campuses are in low-income neighborhoods. 15% of their student population is considered homeless. 85% is on free or reduced lunch. But every single campus performs in the top 10% academically, whatever school district, whatever state, whatever city they're in.
Is there any other group in the country that does that?
No. They are the top ones. I specifically sought them out because that's what we need. Because a lot of people don't like charter schools. They don't believe in that model. A lot of them do fail.
Yeah.
But this one they figured it out. They've worked out all the kinks. They're highly successful. This is gonna be their first Texas location.
And when done correctly, I mean, it's proven.
It is.
Top 10%. I mean, that speaks for itself,
Top 10%.
right?
Yeah, they just had a news article go out in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, about the elementary school testing in the top 6% in the state. They've only been in Arkansas 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And Pine Bluff is a very poor, low-income community.
Absolutely. Predominantly black, most of their schools.
Predominantly black, yeah.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah, so that project, I'm also partnering with the Housing Authority so that half of the building is going to be affordable. So it'll be 20% below market rate for the majority. Then we're going to have a 10% component that'll be 40% below market rate. But in exchange for that, I don't pay any property taxes on that deal at all. But I'm going to target a group that's a little bit different. We don't hear people talk about it a lot. It's the entrepreneurs that are actually creating businesses that want to create jobs in those communities.
That's right.
Their tax returns show that they make $40,000 to $80,000 a year, so they qualify for that group. And I want them to be in the neighborhood. I want them to be in a community amongst themselves where they can help each other build up and grow.
That's right.
And that's a group that we should definitely be supporting and making sure that housing is not a concern for them as they build these businesses.
So let's break that down a little bit.
Yeah.
You acquired the land for a development play, which you put together pro formas and financial model, of course. We can get into that in a second. For 6.4, you raised 850 grand, including some of your bread. And then the sellers, because they believed in the mission enough, said, hey, we will close and we'll leave in $1 million, 1.2 million into the deal.
Yeah.
So at 6.4, when you got the appraisal, it appraised at 6.7.
Correct.
And I wanted to highlight that because when you closed on that land, even though you had investors, you walked in at $300,000 worth of equity.
Right.
You borrowed 850, or people invested 850, but you had already built in 300,000 in equity for you and your investors. So I didn't want to jump past that and not highlight how remarkable that is as a sponsor, a developer, and how you are responsible. You are a very responsible fiduciary manager of funds because you think about these things. And you may talk over it because it's normal for you. But I definitely want to highlight and commend you for that.
Yeah, thank you. And the reason why that is beneficial to everybody involved is if the project is not successful and I have to sell it, I have $300,000 to spend on closing costs to give those investors some type of return.
That's right.
And then make sure everybody's made whole in the end.
You can still give them the return that you promised with that 300 grand right there.
Yes.
You know, because the time frame is shorter,
Mm-hmm.
than the extended hold. So it makes sense, man. And the next thing, you then went through a rezoning process. And for all of you wholesalers out here, I'm going to tell you about this play that is probably the biggest hidden gem for you. And I know all of our guys teach us to do a course on this, but there are parcels of land that you can go in and identify. I'm gonna buy this land for 6.7. You find the right team, 6.4, my apologies. You find the right team and you think about the exit strategy. The exit strategy could be a development project. You have to understand what the maximum acquisition cost would be based on the potential of that deal. So it's a slight difference from like the ARV that you do on the residential side. But once you figure out how to do this, you take the 6.4, you take that down, you go through the rezoning process. How long did that take?
Man, the thing about Houston is there's not much of a rezoning process at all.
No.
So it took a couple months. Yeah.
Because Houston doesn't even really have zoning, right? So after a few months, you went from 6.4 in value to
8.65.
0.65.
Yeah. Without touching the property.
Nothing at all. So you just created 6.4, 8.65, $2.25 million in a few months.
Right.
So let's pause there. If you did nothing else but sold it,
right,
you can.
Yes.
If you were mercenary and trying to get a buck for yourself, and you wasn't trying to do this with the school and improve the community and do something for entrepreneurs, you can make $2 million
$2 million right now.
Yeah. Right now, today.
Right now.
This man is sitting on that. Let's be clear about that. So I'm giving y'all the play. Because if you go out and find this land, maybe not necessarily in these communities, right? Do it in a different community. But you go out and find the land, there is a wholesaling opportunity when you go out, you upzone, and then you sell for the new value of that property. And that's a phenomenal way to create wealth, but it's not necessarily always advantageous for the community. So we got to be honest about both, right? Can we create wealth? And what impact is that having on our community? Can't have one conversation without the other, but I wanted to give y'all the game to see what this man just did and highlight the fact that although he can make $2 million right here today, his mission, his purpose is bigger than the money. And hats off for that. I'm gonna just ask you some personal questions now, man. Like what type of music do you listen to? Who are your top 3 artists? You in the Houston area, but is that the type of vibe you rock with?
Man, I listen to any type of music, honestly. I got my top 5 is all over the map.
Yeah, let's do top 5. Let's do top 5. Dead or alive.
Top 5. Of course, I got Jay-Z.
Cool.
I got Kanye.
Okay.
I got Amy Winehouse.
Okay.
I'm gonna say Marvin Gaye, and then who would be round out my top 5? Michael Jackson, bro. That's my top 5.
I'm not mad at that.
All over the map, but I love it.
I don't know who else would have said that, but I'm not mad at that. I Okay, I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, bro.
Super diverse.
I'm just a fan of good music, creativity. I feel like they're all geniuses in their own right.
Absolutely.
Most of them have social deficits in other areas of life, but that usually comes with genius.
Right.
That usually comes with genius.
Right.
But man, yeah, no, those are my top 5 for sure.
So this is a question I get from one of the podcasts I watch, All the Smoke, right? They ask typically, if you had a dream dinner of 5 people, dead or alive, who would you bring? Excluding yourself.
Man, okay. Number 1, I would bring Abraham Lincoln because I want to know the real reason why he freed the slaves.
Hey, that's a bar. Again, I don't know who would be thinking about that,
Right,
but I
right.
mess with it, man.
That,
okay.
I would bring Mansa Musa too because
Yes, sir.
Per capita, dollar for dollar, he was one of the wealthiest people ever.
He was
Black
the
man.
wealthiest person.
And you know what? We always talk about all black everything, but the only reason he was there, he was the opposite of all African everything. He did trade and commerce with every single continent. Everybody wanted to do business with him.
Which is why he has so much money.
That's why he had so much money.
He got that everybody dollar.
Everybody dollar, right. So I would have him. I would have Barack at the table.
Okay.
And then I would have some people I just want to ask some questions to. I would have Donald Trump at the table just to ask him, what the fuck are you thinking sometimes? You know?
What's going on, bro?
Right. What's going on? And then I'll probably pull Elon Musk in, man, because he's so revolutionary. I just want to rub elbows with people that really don't care what anybody else thinks about them.
Yeah, I could tell by both of your lists. That's a common thing.
Yeah. I love genius, I love creativity, I love trailblazers, and I want to be in that energy, in that circle.
And that effort mentality, clearly. That's the Q in you.
Yeah, right.
That's that Q dog coming out.
Right. There you go.
right. Shout out. Wow. Dang, okay. Why Obama? You kind of skipped over that. I mean, to speak for itself, but.
Yeah, well, just to talk to somebody that was the first,
Okay.
to be in that position, to understand what that was really like internally for him to be in that role and have to play that position. I know there's more he wanted to do, but he was basically the same person as Jackie Robinson was. The first person in the door can't be so revolutionary that it eliminates opportunity for anybody else to do anything after him. And so I would just love to have that conversation with him.
My man.
Yeah.
I don't know what answer is about to come next, but if you had a theme song for your life or an intro song, one song to come out to, what would that be?
A theme song to come out to. That's a tough one, bro.
Take your time, it's all good.
A theme song to come out to.
Any era, any genre.
Let me think. Damn. I don't know.
It's all good. I'll give you mine.
What's yours?
I'll give you some time to think.
Okay.
Hov, man, I gotta rock with my boy.
Yeah.
You Don't Know
Okay.
by Hov. That's probably.
Why you choose that song?
Because I feel it. You know, he speak to me, bro. You know, it's just anybody listen to the just embody those lyrics, right? It's like people questioning you. It's like, nah, I'm coming for this. Like, you don't know who you messing with. Like, I'm really about to get to it. 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4. You know?
Yeah.
Just 5 years, like 80 million more. Add the number up with the one that came before. You are now looking at one small black boy, like, mama ain't raised no fool. Put me anywhere on God's green earth. I trip on my word. Like, it's just, like, it speaks to me. It's just pure boss talk. And it's like, yo, that's how I think every day. Like, I set goals around really maximizing my potential in that way and not putting limits on what I'm doing and how I view my potential. So one of the things that I really take pride in is having, vision, but then also executing, right? And having that proper balance between the two. And my vision is continuously evolving, like yours and everybody's, right? And you always give me some good props, and I appreciate it because I started in development so young. Right? Like, I started this thing 12 years ago. And I'm an overnight success today, finally. People are starting to see my name. But through that process, like, even within the last 3 years, right, I thought that I'd be working on, $100+ million deals, maybe 10 years from now. I just did a $45 million deal. I'm not too far off from that, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm already kind of working towards that. And most recently, I mean, I just got awarded a really large site, 250 or so million total when it's all said and done, in partnership with a phenomenal group, the Integral Group. More details will come out about that, and we are finalists for a $500 million site. You know what I mean? Man. So between the two, looking at $700 million in the pipeline. Bro, I'm 33.
Bro. Amazing,
I'm 33, you know?
Amazing.
So that's why that's my theme song, because it's like, yo, put me anywhere, and I'm going to thrive. Put me in any situation, and I'm going to be alive. Like, I'm just literally coming for everything that's for me, and being the architect of my life in the way that I want to see it. So that song speaks that into my life.
I would say my song, even though it's kind of elementary in the delivery, it's Nas, I Know I Can. Because I mean, it falls along the same lines of what you're talking about. And it's a powerful song. It talks about our history, everything we talked about before. And it's something that I could walk out to it in front of a group of kids or a group of seniors. And it's a message that should resonate with everybody, no matter where you are in life. You can do whatever you want to do.
For sure.
And we just have to stop paying attention to all of the negative things that have happened and focused on the positive things that have happened in history that have set the precedence for us to be able to say, hey, I can do this because it's already been done.
That's a bar.
Yeah.
I love it. That's a checkmate answer, brother.
Yeah.
So my last question that I'm going to ask is a question that I also stole from All the Smoke. Who would you like to see on the show? But before you answer, it got to be someone that you can help get on here.
Okay. Let me think.
And it could be from any era, like, who is, like, y'all want to see that person. You got to have some tie.
Okay. Who would I want to see on this show? Do they have to be in real estate?
No. This is an entrepreneurial-based show, to be honest.
Okay, entrepreneurial.
More so focused on the philosophy and mindset of people's lives. Of course, I'm going to have heavy real estate folks in there because it's my network, but just entrepreneur and someone that's doing some dope stuff and really been able to come from ideally nothing to something and has a story to tell around it.
I'm going to say Savitra Wilson all day. I've introduced you to her before.
Absolutely.
Lost both of her parents, grew up with her grandmother, went to college, never had a job, started a multi-million-dollar consulting firm for nonprofits.
Killing it.
Now she's raised about over $50 million for her tech company. Started from nothing, like you said, and really from bootstraps, like has done all that on her own. A phenomenal story.
You know, it's interesting. I actually, I've been pump faking on this podcast for a while. And during the pandemic, I recorded a few episodes. She was one of my episodes.
Okay.
I didn't put it out because I wanted to change the format. You know, I wanted it to be a little bit nicer, but definitely gonna have her on the show.
Yeah, for sure.
And to be honest, your introduction is why I have her. So I was on her podcast, and then she recorded my podcast. But we're gonna do it in person. We're gonna connect and we're gonna get it out.
I love it. I think, especially for our black women, our minority women.
Absolutely.
Powerful story.
Yes.
Breaking all kind of barriers. She was the first black woman to raise over $2 million the first round. Now she's through the roof with everything else.
Going crazy.
Yeah, going crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, black women in tech is a phenomenal thing. Black women that are getting VC dollars is extremely rare, right? Like she's an anomaly in her space. And definitely needs to be highlighted, praised, and you know, just her. I want to tell her story because her mindset clearly is why she is who she is, right? And that's the purpose of this podcast. Like, from what I got from you today, I see why you are Chris Senegal. You know what I mean? Like everything you've been through, everything you've done, it's all purposeful in some way, shape, or form, and you don't let up, right? So in the same with her, I would love to tell that story for all of our black women and even black men to see what's possible because you, her, and hopefully everybody on here are breaking barriers in their own way. So thank you, brother.
I appreciate it, man. Hey, let's do it again sometime.
Let's do it. Let's do yours.
There we go. Yeah, let's do it.
Yours.
There we go.
Coming soon.
I love it.
Thank you for joining. Appreciate you making it this far. If you liked the episode, share it with a friend, like, comment, subscribe on all YouTube and social media outlets. Also, make sure you check us out at our website, therosegrew.com. You'll see various things such as our merch, as well as, more importantly, a membership community that we've created for people interested in real estate and entrepreneurship. So, any other questions, comments, concerns, share it with us. We would love to hear your feedback. That's the only way we get better. Thank you. See you next week. Peace. Hey everyone, I'm Brandon Rule with the Rosa Grew. Thank you for watching this episode. Really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you next week. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend, family, or whomever, social media, etc. Speaking of social media, make sure you follow us on all social media outlets and platforms. You can find our information on our website. What you'll also find is our merch. You can check out our merch there. And the last thing, probably the most important, we've created a membership, a community for people interested in real estate and entrepreneurship. So if you love to check that out, check out our website. Look forward to seeing you next week. Over and out.